Speculation raged behind the palace walls for weeks. In what condition was Prince Louis? What caused the youngest royal to disappear from view? However, only 3 minutes ago, King Charles broke the hush with a startling, depressing declaration that is reverberating throughout the globe. The reality isn't just devastating. It reveals a more profound royal issue than nobody anticipated. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates before we delve deeper into what this actually implies for the royal family. It began too softly. Without a reason, royal calendars were updated. Without the recognizable spark of a young prince's smile, public appearances continued. Palace aides initially wrote it off as normal. They claimed that the youngster was sleeping, but when the days stretched into weeks, it was hard to ignore the absence. Everyone sensed that something was off. The palace's refusal to confront the quiet was met by social media. Darker ideas were fed by every blurry picture, every engagement that was called off, and every unresolved question. Was it a health issue, a covert mishap, or something the monarchy was frantically attempting to conceal? The whispers became louder the longer the palace remained silent. Then came the moment for which nobody was ready. Instead of moving forward with assurance, King Charles appeared to be carrying a lot of weight. This was not the polished voice of a monarch delivering rehearsed reassurance. He said, his remarks slow, measured, and full of emotion. This was a granddad who was having trouble speaking. His voice trailed off as he replied, "This is not just about a young boy. It's about everything we've failed to protect." That one remark made all the difference, since it was immediately apparent that this was more than just a little setback or a fleeting worry. Charles wasn't talking about privacy or timetables. He was discussing accountability, remorse, and a reality that had been disregarded for far too long. According to sources near the palace, the air was oppressive. As the statement was given, senior helpers reportedly lowered their eyes, completely conscious that this quiet had not happened by chance. It had been painstakingly revealed after being planned out and meticulously measured. Long before the public became aware of Louis's absence, questions had been raised behind closed doors. Early warnings, subtle indicators, and worries that were downplayed, postponed, or ignored in favor of preserving normalcy. Something delicate was left behind as the crown advanced. William's and Catherine's roles have also drawn a lot of attention. What's the point of waiting this long? Why put up with the pressure, the rumors, and the hurtful conjecture? According to insiders, the decision to remain silent was not taken hastily. The decision was motivated by fear of being discovered, fear of the repercussions, and dread of what may happen if the truth were to be acknowledged. And now that Charles has finally spoken, the appearance of serenity has vanished. The story is no longer being controlled by the palace. The truth is screaming to be heard and is pushing outward. However, the true story starts to come apart as the king's voice breaks, because disease isn't the only issue here. Beneath the marble of the palace lies treachery. The palace employees realized something was off before the rest of the world did. Hushed disputes in Kensington's East Wing, late-night doctor visits, and a nursery that became quieter every day. Unsettling rumors had already plagued Prince Louis's early years, and we now know why. Something about the energy in Louis' wing had altered, even in a home used to secrecy. Employees who used to make fun of the youngest royal's charisma suddenly had to be careful. Maids stopped longer outside his door, aides looked at each other, and footmen frequently came back from that hallway looking pale and reticent. It wasn't sickness in the conventional sense. There was uncertainty and terror of what could be found. Even while the public saw happy family photographs taken behind closed doors, Catherine had already started discreetly employing doctors and other specialists who weren't officially on the royal payroll. These were more than just health examinations. These were rigorous developmental assessments that were carried out in complete secret, away from palace clinics and out of the sight of conventional advisors. Normally so calm, Catherine was clearly worn out. She divided her days between emotionally taxing meetings with pediatric neurologists and royal duties. She was afraid of misunderstandings, not embarrassment, which is why she wouldn't let the media know. The pivotal moment occurred during a play session in the afternoon. Breathless, one of the assistants hurried to Catherine to inform her that Louis had suddenly passed out. Everyone in the room was startled by the abrupt silence, which had no obvious source, bruises, or injuries. The ensuing terror struck instantly. Louis was revived when a medical team was sent in. However, something had obviously altered at that very time. Shaken to her very core, Catherine dialed William. After leaving a state function within an hour, the pair completely avoided public life for the next 2 weeks. However, not all members of the family were aware. Catherine's decision left grandfather Charles in the dark, despite his extensive participation in public appearances and diplomatic briefings. Protection, not harshness. She required time, but Camilla was furious. She allegedly accused Catherine of being overly dramatic after receiving evasive responses to her persistent questions over Louis' location. An already tense family dynamic was further complicated by this conflict. In the meantime, palace authorities triggered what is informally referred to as the Royal Privacy Clause, a seldom-used procedure that prevents media outlets from covering certain health-related questions of elderly or well-known minors. Aggressive legal action would be taken in response to any leaks. After being inactive for more than 20 years, this clause's abrupt implementation delivered a strong statement. The company didn't want the public to know that something was amiss. However, that just increased mistrust. The voices outside got louder the more the palace remained silent. As royal physicians search for solutions, their findings spark a string of violent altercations within the palace. Camilla had other ideas when King Charles attempted to bring the family together during a difficult time. What started out as worry quickly escalated into hostility, as Catherine could not stand it when Camilla's expanding power distorted the facts around Prince Louis's illness. Camilla's involvement first appeared to be motivated by good intentions. She offered her condolences, asked how Louis was doing, and even suggested a small family get-together to help William and Catherine. Her tone swiftly changed behind the scenes, though. During a private luncheon with top aides, Camilla said the press was profiting from panic and quiet, dismissing the rising health worries as media hysteria. Days later, her precise words, "This is just another overblown royal flu," were released, shocking everyone in the palace. Already emotionally spent, Catherine felt incredibly deceived. From there, it only got worse. According to reports, Camilla invited a few members of the press to a significant royal charity function after Louis was excused due to a health concern. In any case, cameras were given more access, coverage was increased, and Camilla took center stage alongside her grandkids, who were grinning, waving, and discussing the monarchy's bright future. This was the last straw for Catherine. She saw it not only as inconsiderate, but also as a calculated move to divert attention from Louis to Camilla's own family history. The tension escalated into an uncommon and explosive altercation behind closed doors. Camilla was privately challenged by Princess Anne, who was fiercely devoted to Catherine and extremely troubled by the drama that was developing. What started off as a harsh discussion swiftly became heated. Camilla apparently responded to Anne's accusation that she was using a sick child to enhance her public persona by claiming that no one was supporting the monarchy. The room became chilly. For days, those words would reverberate through the palace hallways. Charles, divided between leadership and allegiance, tried to mediate, but Cammy was unyielding. She maintained that Catherine's control over media narratives had gotten out of control and was causing division and terror in the family. She recommended that Catherine replace the important media liaison and pushed Charles to enforce more stringent restrictions on what might be communicated with the public. Although Charles hesitated, the harm had already been done. Behind the scenes, Camilla had also started advocating for her grandkids to receive greater attention. The royal spotlight was gently moved to the Parker Bowl family through a string of press releases. To increase their visibility, features were written, photos were posted, and even instructional events were planned. It was deliberate, strategic, and totally disconnected from the emotional toll that Catherine and William were bearing. A late-night strategy conference with senior advisors was the tipping point for William. He turned to his father in a moment of anguish and rage, calling Camilla's behavior nothing less than callous disdain. He charged her with rewriting legacy lines by taking advantage of the royal situation. It was uncooked. It was intimate. Additionally, it was a turning point in the relationship between Charles's future king and his current bride. However, the family was quickly torn apart by more than simply Camille's deception. Unexpectedly, another royal would make a catastrophic move. Prince Harry made the decision to reveal the one secret Catherine feared would ever come to light during Prince Louis's quiet suffering. He talked about more than simply familial turmoil in a rare interview. King Charles was shocked by what he said after he identified names. Just the timing seems terrible. Harry's statements, which were precise and intensely personal, exploded like a controlled explosion as the palace tried to contain growing anxiety around Louis. He spoke slowly and deliberately, as though he had practiced each sentence for years. This was no spontaneous outburst of rage. At least according to him, it was calculated truth. Harry proposed that Prince Louis had been doomed from the beginning, not by chance, but by the monarchy's internal workings. He discussed trends, customs that prioritize appearance over action, and warnings disregarded since doing so would require facing up to awkward realities about the royal family. His inference was disastrous. This was no coincidence. It was protocol-covered neglect. Then the nation was frozen by the line. Harry asserted that years prior, King Charles had been informed of a genetic problem impacting specific family branches. A risk, something that was considered in private before being put on hold. Harry claims that the crown prioritized reputation over accountability and continuity over caution. He said that Charles was aware and decided to keep quiet. Meghan didn't remain silent for very long. She quickly echoed Harry's allegations, accusing the company of hiding delicate genetic analyses in order to maintain public order. She presented it as an institutional shortcoming rather than a royal one. She claimed that even at the expense of a child, they defend the throne. The words quickly gained traction, inspiring equal parts incredulity and indignation. Catherine passed out from the stress of everything inside the palace. Once, then again, the interview played. Every repeat revealed more. She felt blindsided, exposed, and deceived by someone she had previously trusted. This was not an issue. Public warfare was what this was. It is said that Catherine sobbed in secret. Her ire was stoked by the timing as well as the charges. Louis remained weak and exposed, and his suffering had now spread over the world. And now, as the dust settles from accusations, interviews, and a king's trembling confession, the monarchy finds itself standing at the edge of its most fragile moment in decades. This is no longer just about Prince Louis's health. It's about trust, about whether the institution built on tradition can survive transparency. A mother fought to protect her son. A father questioned the very system he was born to inherit. A king admitted regret. And across the ocean, a prince ignited a fire that may never fully be extinguished. If Harry's claims hold even a fragment of truth, the damage reaches far beyond palace walls. But if they don't, then the wounds inflicted by those words may be just as devastating. Either way, the image of unity the crown has fought so hard to preserve is cracking under the weight of its own silence. Prince Louis may be out of sight, but the battle over his story is now very much in public view. And what happens next won't just shape headlines, it could redefine the future of the royal family itself. Stay with us, because this chapter is far from over.